trouble, it's not my fault. All this, I also lose my friends, I lost my baby. That is looking crack, only today want to change. He wanted us, so they could give a try, well, I to feel. I'd kill the grill, take your life in a second. The table drinks coffee in my kitchen, I mentioned eating every song, I just wanted to go away. You decide to stay in the well. I want to be forgiven, I don't like this kid for money. Sorry I was scared, you're not the way it feels. Like to sleep with it for someone to come in and kill you. The final thing is that now we're not afraid of anything. Cause they're gonna kill anyone that feels so powerful. They try by you every your skin of everything is confusing. You will be good but you will be more. You will be good but you will be more. You will be good but you will be more. Alone every day it is a praise of pleasure.
Good morning and welcome to Dynasty 365, where the film will set you free. It's going to be a pretty short episode today. We're just going to be going over Emmanuel Butler, wide receiver out of Northern Arizona's situation with the New Orleans Saints after signing there as an undrafted free agent. At wide receiver, the Saints have Michael Thomas, who's clearly a stud, and his production probably isn't changing anytime soon. They also have Tre'Quan Smith, who I do really like. I liked him as a prospect last year. He has some agility issues, and he did suffer some consistency and hands issues last year during the season, but he could definitely take a step forward with an extra off-season of NFL coaching. Ted Ginn, most people know, is pretty much just a deep threat at this point in his career, and he is getting up there in age, so he probably won't be around much longer. Cameron Meredith is also there, who was rehabbing an ACL tear last season, but had a pretty good year with the Bears the year before when they had no one else on the depth chart and he saw a lot of targets. So he's a huge unknown right now. They've also got Austin Carr, Keith Kirkwood, and Tommy Lee Lewis, who are Jags. So it's clearly a much more crowded wide receiver room than at the Chiefs, but there really is only one solidified starter there with the amount of uncertainty about Tre'Quan Smith's development and consistency. At tight end, they signed Jared Cook, who was with the Raiders last year, and Cook honestly looked like an absolute freak of nature for the Raiders, but they really didn't have many receiving weapons. Jared Cook has never looked that good in any season ever, either athletically or numbers-wise. So it could have been a fluke year with being the only real downfield threat in town, or it could have finally been a breakout year for him. Regardless of which one it was, most likely somewhat of a breakout year. He should have no problem producing with Drew Brees. At running back, they clearly have one of the best pass-catching backs in the league with Alvin Kamara. They also signed Latavius Murray this offseason, who showed an increased ability to catch when he was with Minnesota compared to his previous years of his career. And they also signed Devine Ozigbo as an undrafted free agent who can catch as well. So compared to the Chiefs, there's definitely more obstacles for receiving targets straight out of the gate, but injuries do happen in the NFL. And in the receiver group, there's really only one player that Emmanuel Butler couldn't theoretically overtake for snaps. At quarterback, it's Hall of Famer Drew Brees. He'll probably retire sometime in the next couple of years, if I had to guess. But he has historically elite production in the passing game. It's definitely dropped off the last few years, but there's also been a stylistic change within the Saints, going from an almost pure passing attack to a borderline run-first team. The Saints had the third best passing offense in 2018, according to DVOA. They were 12th in passing yards in the NFL, which is actually lower than I would have thought starting this analysis. Brees threw 32 touchdowns, which was in the upper range of quarterbacks, but clearly isn't 50. The offense was second in yards per drive and points per drive. The defense last year was somewhere between good and great, showing inconsistency at times throughout the year depending on the matchup they had to go against, but overall definitely one of the better defenses in the NFL. They haven't really made many changes to the defense, so I don't see why that's going to affect the offense too much this season. Of course, injuries can always happen, but injuries are pretty difficult to predict. Now let's talk about Emmanuel Butler, the player. On my pre-draft rankings, he was the wide receiver 14. He is 6 feet 3 inches tall and 227 pounds with absolutely gigantic 10.75-inch hands. I believe tied or above Hakeem Butler. He has the 5th best weight divided by height metric of all the rookies this year, and he is first in hand size divided by height. Now, I've never seen something that says hand size divided by height is a predictive metric of success in the NFL. It's something I'm keeping track of this year just to see, but 10.75-inch hands are pretty ridiculous. He did only put up 11 reps on the bench at the combine, which is slightly concerning, but it's not a killer. He had a below-average broad jump, but an average vertical at 36 inches. And my favorite thing about his combine testing was a 4.22 20-yard shuttle, which shows good agility and stop-start ability combined with acceleration. He did not do the 40 at the combine, which makes me think he does lack the long speed and the flashy number there. And he also didn't do the 3-cone drill. His film only had one full game and then a highlight tape, so it was pretty difficult to evaluate. But the good things I did see on film was a consistent ability to high point hands catch in contested situations. He has surprising agility, is physical. He's used to double coverage throughout a lot of his college career. There was one play where the ball was on the opposite hash and he had a corner lined up on him and a safety over the top in the red zone. So a 2-on-1 and a long throw on 3rd or 4th down, and they still threw him the ball because they thought they had a win. Now, the play didn't turn out very well, but that amount of confidence in a receiver that's still being double covered is a great sign. He's got great ball tracking, has great blocking effort, but not very good form. And he also got more athletic and fast over the length of his college career. He can bend, which is a concern for guys coming out of a smaller school, but he can get low and catch the ball. He can adjust to poorly thrown footballs and has a large catch radius. He's a spectacular catcher. I would say the best spectacular catcher in the class. Go watch his highlight film and tell me he's not a spectacular catcher. He has high football IQ. He has more in-game experience while also seeing a lot of double coverage than most receivers in this class, I would wager. He has great sideline awareness, and he has good to great contact balance once the ball is in his hands. The concerning things about Butler are that he doesn't get much route separation on film. He does have concerns about his top-end long speed, but the biggest for me is that there's not very much film. There's one game from 2 years ago on YouTube. Everything else has to come from a highlight film, which is pretty hard to make an objective and rational determination on how often he can win using certain techniques. My biggest concern about his situation is that there are more players that are skilled at catching passes than you're going to see with Mecole 101. The good thing is that he does have a body type and skill set that the Saints don't really have yet outside of Michael Thomas. So he might contribute early. He might have to develop. He possibly could move to tight end, which would be amazing for his fantasy value. But there is always that concern about Brees retiring. So once again, let's go over the difference between my pre-draft ranks and post-draft ranks. Pre-draft rankings are using the film to say who are the most complete players right now, as I believe that gives them the highest ability or chance to produce when given an opportunity in year one, regardless of where they go throughout the draft. If they see the field, do they have enough different ways to beat a defender that they might be able to produce consistently? After the draft, we see that he's an undrafted free agent. So the truth lies somewhere in the middle, in my estimation. It could end up that he's a wide receiver 14. It could end up that he never sees the field for one snap in his entire career. But the great thing about Emmanuel Butler is that you can get him late in your rookie drafts and possibly even after your rookie draft as a free agent. And to me, it's worth the risk of wasting, quote-unquote, that roster spot to see how he develops and to have first dibs on him if he starts to dominate in the preseason or good news starts coming out about him. I really got no more advice today. Wanted to make it a pretty quick episode on Friday. From looking at the download stats, it seems like everyone needs a little bit of a chance to catch up with the content. My goal was to overload your available time to listen to podcasts so that you had kind of a backlog. But next week, the shows will go back to about the half hour, 20-minute-ish length that they have been. The Tier 1 wide receiver film note breakdowns is going to be released next Friday. The Tier 1 wide receivers pre-draft were Paris Campbell, Kelvin Harmon, Andy Isabella, DK Metcalf, and Riley Ridley. Have a great weekend, everybody. This is Dynasty 365, where the film will set you free.
So much trouble, it's not my fault. All this I also lose my friends, I lost my baby that was looking crack. Only today want to change. He wanted us on the cougar and try more like to feel. I'd kill the bill, take your life in a second. The devil drinks coffee in my kitchen, I mentioned in every song, I just wanted to go away. You decide to stay in the well. I want to be forgiven, I don't like this kid for money. Sorry, I was scared, you're not the way it feels. Like to sleep waiting for someone to come in and kill you. The final thing is stop now, I'm not afraid of anything. Go they gonna kill anyone that feels so powerful. They trip by you, I read your skin up, everything is confusing. You will be good, but you will be more. You will be good, but